Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nathan Garner. I'm the Technical Pre-Sales and Project Manager here at Dynamic CCTV. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Penton IP audio solutions that are available now from Dynamic CCTV. Today I'm joined by Matthew and Marcus from Penton UK. Marcus is going to go through some of the different audio ranges that are available from Penton that can be supplied through ourselves. And then Marcus is going to go through some of the demo side of things, looking at some of the actual equipment's web front end. He's also got setup, which you can see on his webcam there as well. And so I'm going to hand over to Matt. And if you have any questions, if you put them in the Q&A section on the webinar, and then towards the end, come on to the questions right at the end, and we can start going through those. So I'll hand over to Matt now. All yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. We're just going to quickly just pop through a PowerPoint for 5-10 minutes just to sort of give you an idea about Penton, what we offer, some of the key products within the Telecom range, and then, as I say, we'll hand over to Marcus to do a little bit of a demo and then open up for any Q&A. So if we could have the first slide, please, Nathan. So effectively speaking, Penton UK has been in business since 1996, based in Worthing in West Sussex. Our international manufacturing R&D is all in Taiwan, and we do have offices sort of worldwide, as you can see, Europe, North America, Middle East and Asia. Arthur Chen is the CEO, and he owns Penton UK. He owns all the sales offices and all of the sort of R&D. So our boss is sort of the head of the manufacturing as well. So although we are a distribution office, we are value added, as I'll go through, and we are owned by the manufacturer. The three brands that we have within the portfolio, today we're going to be concentrating on the Telecom, but just to give you sort of a wider range view, Penton loudspeakers, we do everything from 100 volt line, low impedance, columns, cabinets, sound projectors, you name it. And as you can see there's just sort of an example of some of the big projects that we've done within the UK and worldwide. Sydney Metro is something we're doing at the moment, which is 10,000 speakers. And then as you go through, you've got the 𝐂𝐴𝐓𝐕, which is public address and voice alarm. So that is life safety, evacuation, public address equipment. The IDA 8 system that you'll see there is one of only two to be certified for Network Rail use and Transport for London in the UK. So currently Paddington Station, King's Cross, Great Western Line, Brighton Football Stadium, they're the types of sort of venues that you'll find that equipment. And then the Telecom, which is obviously what we're talking about mainly today. Amazon distribution centres we're doing at the minute, Ministry of Defence, all those different types of things, all the way down to smaller projects such as schools and things like that. So that's just to give you sort of a basis of who we are, what we do and what we sell in terms of our product range. So next one, please, Nathan. So as mentioned, we are value added. So yes, we can provide box shifting as such, but we also have internal production that we can assist you obviously with Dynamic and you directly in terms of technical support. So we can build all our own racks, whether that's public address, voice alarm, audio over IP, that can be freestanding, wall mounted. We do that all in-house, and that's all done by Penton trained engineers. All of our speakers can be painted. If you have a look on our website, there's a RAL color chart. All we'd need to know is sort of the RAL color that you're looking for and the code, if it's in black and whether it's in matte or gloss percentage, and we can get those done, turned around in usually 7 to 10 days, no problem. Commissioning and maintenance, again, Penton trained engineers can go to site for you, can help you, set up and commission your system. And we can also assist you with maintenance contracts if that's something you require as well. Bespoke, we can do bracketry, cabling, metalwork. We can do that for sort of pole mounted things, wall mounted. We can do it for protective housing, all that type of thing. Sometimes you have these sort of specialized projects where you need a sort of a unique bespoke solution. So we can help design that and help with our local metalwork team provide that as well. In-house repairs, that's all done in the UK as well. And also remote support. So especially with the Telecom IP range, we can provide commissioning and maintenance and all those types of things from the office without needing to go to site. In fact, Marcus, who's going to sort of demo for you shortly, has done many sort of Amazon warehouse jobs where he's set up 120 IP speakers from our office, while the client is on site. So they're just some of the extra services we offer. If you go to the Penton UK website, pentonuk.co.uk, you can click through these options and there's a little bit more info there for you if you're interested. Thanks, Nathan. So as we say, this is the Terracom range. So I'll take you through this, and then any sort of further questions at the end, please feel free to ask. So Terracom doesn't require any centralized equipment. So unlike the ATEUS voice alarm public address stuff that we sell, there's always going to be a rack room. There's always going to be a centralized point where your amplifiers and your control system is based. And obviously from there, your speaker wiring goes out. Terracom isn't like that. It's non-centralized. It's nodes across the site, across the building. There's no centralized software requirement either. We do have a variety of different software platforms you can implement that do have node licensing. However, to simply use the Terracom hardware, there's no node license. There's no centralized equipment needed whatsoever, obviously apart from the network switch. This schematic here just gives you a rough idea of just how many Terracom modules there are. And when you look at sort of competitive brands that we're up against with regards to sort of IP equipment, you'll find that a lot of them have sort of an all-in-one box or a couple of boxes that sort of offer you the IP functionality. The approach that we've taken is that we don't want clients and customers to have to pay for functionality they don't need. And you can see that as an example there. If you look at the IP network cloud in the middle, just to the right, you'll see a Terra amp, and just to the left, you'll see a Terra IX. They're in principle the same box, but the Terra amp has a 2x15 watt amplifier in it, and the Terra IX doesn't. So therefore, if you don't need the amplification, you don't need to pay for it. And then as you make your way around, you'll see various other boxes there, encoders, decoders, boxes that can simultaneously encode and decode at the same time. You've got Terra FXO, which I'll go into a little bit later, which is great for telephone systems. And then as you'll make your way, you've got IP speakers and microphones, etc. This schematic can be found on our website. If you go to the audio over IP overview page, and then all of these options, you can click through to the certain products. So that's quite a good reference point. Yeah, so sort of the main functionality, why you're using Terracom: paging, intercom, music streaming, audio routing, messaging, logic control, bell scheduling, monitoring. Majority of the Terracom boxes have an internal message store, and they all have an internal scheduler. So if you're doing a project such as a school, you can eliminate the need for a third-party bell system because you can store all of the bells and the chimes and the break sounds on the internal memory of the boxes, and then you can set the internal scheduler and trigger those sort of any time that you need to. As you can see there's a wide variety. You've got a couple of different microphones at the top. The Terra K is the one on the left with the red button. That's for an all-call, all-zone messaging. And the one to the right is a PPM IT5, and that is a multi-zone microphone. So it's really easy to choose the difference between the two. The PPM IT5 can actually call up to 168 zones or targets from one mic. So that's sort of pretty comprehensive. And you can actually create full duplex telephone conversation between two of them if they happen to be on the same system. As previously mentioned, top left, you have Terra Manager, top right, you have Terra Server, and they are additional software platforms that you can use, operational on touchscreens and things like that. And then across the bottom, you'll see some of our IP speakers, which I'll go into a little bit more detail a little later. So as mentioned, you can use Terracom for more than just really an audio solution. They've all got logic IOs on there, meaning you can sort of trigger door access, gates, lights, all that type of thing. So it can be like a centralized system for your whole project. You can incorporate a lot of things. And as Dynamic have been doing really well, starting to include it within CCTV for triggering alerts and messages, live speech, and all these types of things. The internal memory, as I say, 80 meg. There are additional USB functionality on there as well if you need more storage. Just sync up the devices, use the scheduler, as I say, and eliminate the need for that bell system and do it all through the Terracom. And the Terra FXO is effectively a device that enables you to use your Terracom paging system within analog or IP phone systems. There is a slide a little later which shows some of sort of the advantages of that. So why do we use Terracom? Simple installation. Quite frankly, it's just sort of a network cable into a very small little box. There's no long cable runs, easily configured, through your web browser. Just connect to each box for setting up. Again, Marcus will give you an example of that a little later. Off-site control and access obviously makes setting up and maintenance a lot issue, means you can avoid going to site. You can have effectively 10,000 Terracom boxes per system. So, you know, as I say, for any system that's larger than that, that's going to be quite the project. Layer 3 communication and all the benefits that come with it. Easily extendable. We've done numerous projects where the client wants to start with 1 or 2 zones due to budget or disruption. And then we put those systems in. And then 6 to 12 months later, they come back and want to extend. And for us, that's very easy. You just literally are connecting more boxes to the system, finding the IP address, you know, and that's really it. And a vast majority of the modules are powered by PoE or have an external power supply if you require that. That could be more important for obviously any of the boxes that require amplification to get the full power out. So we've just used a school scenario here just to sort of give you an idea of how you could set a system up. So for a larger school who want to use the software, as you can see on the screen there, that's just an overview of a football stadium or a sports stadium. We've actually used Terra Manager at Brighton Football Stadium on the south coast, and what it enables you to do is highlight and scan areas of an image of that particular project, and then be able to touch those areas to sort of highlight and page that particular zone. And that's great for sort of, if you've got a high turnover of staff who are sort of temporary workers and having to train them is a difficult thing. You can literally just say to them, press the areas on the map, and then that will enable you to sort of page those particular zones. And then you would use your Terra K. So you'd just, for example, collect the west, hit the west stand, hit your Terra K, and then you'd be able to page straight to that zone. For smaller systems and you don't want to pay for the additional software, then the PPM IT5 would be great, because that will allow you, as I say, to call up to 168 zones or targets. The microphone itself has got an internal memory, and the buttons are programmable as well. So you can call 1, 50 and 148 without having to set particular groups. You can do that ad hoc, or you can create groups of zones. You can adjust the volume, you can trigger from there. So it's very flexible, very powerful. So the PPM IT5 is a great solution if you don't need the software. So here is our new product. This is the Terra SAP, and this is something that has been brought to market. It's ideal for schools, but can be used in other areas. It's sort of a mini DSP, so you've got some control. So you can play around with the audio and the quality. So you've got gates and limiters and all those types of things, again, which Marcus will go through shortly. But it acts as sort of your internal hub for the classroom. So you can attach microphones that have got phantom power. So you can have a boundary microphone for sound reinforcement, which is great for university lecture halls. You can have a lapel wireless mic for your presenter. And then if you've got 10, 15, 20 rows back in a university hall, you can really get that sound reinforcement and get that speech enhancement back to the classroom. And then you can incorporate sort of AEC, auto echo cancellation, and all those types of things to sort of help with conferencing. You can put your audio through it from your screen or your projector or your PC. And as you'll see with that red button there, that's an emergency lockdown button. So it's used in the States for sort of emergency lockdown, obviously with the situation out there with intruders into schools and things. That's sort of where the concept was originally designed, that you can hit that red button, sort of lock a door, put a message out, and everyone locks down and obviously make sure that they're safe. So very flexible unit. It's on our website now, so it's certainly worth looking at if you do those types of projects. So the Terra DS is a intercom. It can be programmed for push to talk, automatic talk. It's got it's hands-free two-way audio. It's vandal proof. It's stainless steel. There is no video on that because obviously we just do the audio. So if you're just looking for a sort of standard PoE intercom, and that's a nice addition for you. As I say, it's sort of outdoor rated and built-in condenser microphone, so the sound quality is great. So yeah, so that's a good option. The Terra DS that sits within the Terracom range. The APH30 IP is our IP horn. That's something that we've actually used within the Amazon jobs. I think we've got 120 in the warehouse of one of them. And again, that's got some integrated DSP tools as well. So it's not one of those horns that unfortunately you have to accept whatever audio quality comes out of it. You can actually play around with that and make sure that you're getting a good quality sound coming from a horn. Because unfortunately, a lot of people that do IP, they have this sort of, that they don't come from an audio background, they have this sort of perspective that if you can hear it, it means it sounds good. That isn't always the case. You know, it's like if someone was to look at a standard definition TV to a 4K definition TV, you can tell the difference straight away. And it's the same with the sound quality. So although it has the IP functionality, we want to make sure that what we're listening to is audible and it sounds good. And that's why you have the DSP tools within this, again, that Marcus will show you in a little bit as to why it's there. So that's the APH30. And this is our IP range in full. So you've got a ceiling speaker, you've got cabinet speakers, you've got sound projectors. So it's a variety really. And using Terracom, you've got a variety of ways of actually putting together your system. So if you wanted just for speech, we would recommend the RCS5. If you were trying to do a little bit of background music, we'd recommend the RCS6 because it's a coaxial driver. So it's advanced for sort of background music. And then we've got, as I say, the PBC, which for a cabinet, you've got your APH for your horn and your CL10 for sound projectors. We are expanding this range because of our in-house production. We are able to sort of expand this quite quickly. If you have another type of speaker that you'd be looking at and that you're interested in making IP, we can try. We have our own 3D printer set up, so we can create the bracketry internal housing for it. It's merely a case of, does the IP module fit into the physical speaker? If it doesn't, we can provide the IP module in a weatherproof junction box, and it enables you to sit it between or outside the speakers, you know, above a full ceiling or something like that. And the other benefit of doing it that way, by having the IP module externally, is it allows you to actually slave off a couple of passive speakers from one IP module. So if you go to a school or a library or somewhere where the budget is low and they don't want to spend £300, £400, £500 per IP speaker, take an IP module and split 2 or 3 speakers off of that and reduce your cost of your IP speaker down. The negative of that is obviously you can't then individually address every speaker, and there will be more wiring. So it could potentially look a little bit messier with speaker wiring as opposed to just network cable, but it does offer you that flexibility. And again, because it's the same IP module, you get those integrated DSP tools with all these speakers as well. So going back to the FXO effectively, again, allows you to incorporate an analog or an IP phone system into your Terracom IP system. So it allows you to page into it, connect to it. So as you see on that first line there, you've got your analog, then you've got your mobile phone. So a project we did once was a school wanted the teacher, to be able to call in to the paging system from the playground using their mobile. And that was because when they take the kids out for break or out for lunch, they would often have 1 or 2 children lingering back in the classroom. So what they can do is dial into the school number. You can pin protect it just in case, you know, students get the number. Pin protect it, you go through to the system. You then dial hashtag 104 for zone 4 as an example. And then you can make a live announcement from your mobile into that classroom to say, if there are any children remaining, we're now in the playground, please come out. So that's the sort of principle behind it. The next line. So whenever you're obviously registering IP phones on a system, you have to pay an individual license cost for every handset that you have. By incorporating an FXO onto the system, you're only having to pay a single SIP license, and that's for the FXO. And then you chain out all of your IP phones off the back of it that you don't have to pay licenses for. So if it's for an IP system, it's great for saving in commercial sort of aspects. It's a great tool to have. And then finally, without a SIP server and you've got IP phones, by adding an FXO in, it gives you functionality such as all call routing. If someone rings one phone, you can push them to another, and storing messages and then forwarding them on as well. So it really is like a Swiss Army knife for sort of telephone systems. Another one of the benefits of Terracom and its flexibility, it really is an audio product. I know it's PoE and it's IP, but it's an audio product. So what we find in a lot of libraries and a lot of schools is they have these existing sort of standard traditional audio systems where they have speaker runs everywhere and they have a rack of amplifiers, and they want to utilize as much of the equipment as possible, but they want some IP functionality. Well, for us, that's really easy. So we come in, we put a Terra IX wired into that amplifier in that system, and then we can take a PPM IT5 mic straight into that, and suddenly you've got IP functionality throughout that system. Okay, it's not individual IP speakers, but they're paying, a very, very small percentage of the overall cost. It allows, as you see there, you can music stream through that as well. So it's a nice hybrid compromise if someone doesn't have the budget, but they do really want that IP functionality. So bear that in mind. We can help you with that. If you ever go to a site and you have an existing system, let us know what it is, give us some details, and we can help describe and explain to you how we can make that work for you. This just really gives you a basic idea of how you can design your system. So in the top left, you're literally coming straight from your network switch out to IP speakers, where the IP module is built into the back of the speaker. The top right, you're using the TeraAmp or other Teracom modules. And from there, you're doing speaker wiring out from that. So in the Amazon jobs, for example, we're using the top left in the warehouse. You have about 120 speakers in the warehouse in the shape of the horn. And in the canteen and the office areas, we have a TeraAmp that sits above the full ceiling, and we have 2 to 3 ceiling speakers coming off that, because as you can imagine, in an office or a canteen, you don't need to individually address those speakers because they're so close together. So why pay the full IP costs for each speaker, split the price out, use a TeraAmp, excellent solution. And then down the bottom, as previously shown, we're utilizing an existing traditional audio system. We're placing an encoder decoder on top of it, and then we're using the system in that kind of way. And then finally speaking, this is our Teracom guide. You'll be able to find this and download this on our website, again, pentonuk.co.uk, audio over IP overview page. Just below the schematic, you'll find a link to download this. This is about 10 or 12 pages long. It's got different examples of how to put together a system. So in the top right corner, you'll see it says paging, and then there are background music and intercom options as you go down through the guide. And really, you're just literally going, it's a bit like a shopping list. So stage 1, single target or multi-zone. Is it an all-call system you're doing? Well, if that's the case, you just need the TeraK. Do you need to call more than one zone at once? Then it's the PPM IT5. You choose your relevant microphone. Step 2, which kind of module do you need in each classroom? Do you already have amplification? If that's the case, you only need a TeraEX if you're receiving audio. If you want to put audio from that local zone onto the system, you need the IEX, etc. And then step 3, you choose your speakers, add your switch, and then you're done. And as you go through the list, you'll effectively have using IP speakers instead of modules, and background music and intercom. And then there's some sort of more specific project case studies like retail, multi-building, schools, etc. like that. So that can be downloaded from our website. So yeah, that's it from me. That was a quick overview. I hope that was obviously explained the system in a reasonable way. If you've got any questions, obviously we can answer those after. And yeah, I'll hand back to Nathan and Marcus for a demo.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. That was great. So Marcus is just going to go through a demo now of the actual IP system, taking a look through the web front ends of the system. And he's also got one set up on his webcam as well, which I'll highlight the video so it'll actually bring up full screen for everyone on the webinar. And so if you want to take over there now, Marcus, that one.
All right, thank you. Could you just highlight the video so I can just point out what's what on the webcam? We have the IT5, our call station, here on your lower right. On your lower left, we have the TeraSAP, that is the classroom system. It has one speaker connected with a Blu-ray cable sitting on top of the network switch. And on the back here, we have the PBC6 IP speaker. Just to show it, this is the back, so you can see the IP module sitting in the speaker, and all the connection we have is the network cable, no external power supply or anything needed. So you can see the setup is really quite simple. I'm now going to share my screen so you can see how the system is actually programmed and how easy it is to set up calls or functions between different units. And there we go. So all the systems are accessed in a web browser, so your standard Firefox, Chrome, whatever will do. You don't need any dedicated software inside. First, we're going to start to take a look at the PPM IT5, the call station. We can simply log in with our credentials, and then we can set up the IT5 call station. Up here, I have already the TeraSAP and the IP speaker opened. Okay, I think Zoom is messing with the connection because this takes way longer than usual. All right. Under Setup 1, we can do basic settings for the whole system, IP address, system time, third-party controls, and so on. We can set pre-chimes, post-chimes, essentially do some very basic setup of the system. If we switch over to the Device tab, we will see all the devices that are detected on the network right now. So in this case, we can see the IT5. We're looking at data from the IT5's perspective, so this is the unit we are on. We can see an IP speaker, and we can see the 𝐂𝐸 This page will discover all the ATAS devices or all the telecom devices on the network. So it doesn't matter if it's an IP speaker, a call station, any device on the network will be discovered and will be listed here. I can then simply click on Add to add a device to my address book. It will automatically fill most of the fields, and I can assign a random name. Let's call it Classroom 1. And now that speaker is shown as Classroom 1. And it will show up on the top here. So the lower part of the screen is our devices on the network that are not signed up. And above the yellow line, it will show the devices that are registered on the IT5. And then click on Add for the 𝐂𝐸 as well. To add the 𝐂𝐸, and we'll just call that 𝐂𝐸. Click on Save, and the 𝐂𝐸 is now part of our address book too, and we can make calls to it and address it. So if I want to set up a simple call from the IT5 to one of the devices, all I need to do is switch over to Machine Windows and create a button for it. The way we do that is quite simple. We simply select the keys. So we have keys 1 through to 12. This would be a first page, and we can obviously program more pages. So 14 pages in total times 12, that's 168 buttons program. Now we just say button number 1 should point to a device, and it should point to the classroom. Button number 2 should point to a device, and it should point to the 𝐂𝐸. Click on Save, and we have 2 buttons show up on the call station right here. And then simply click on Classroom, select, I want to make an announcement, and we're making a live announcement to the 𝐂𝐸 to the classroom. And then I can hang up again. This is how easy it is to make a call from one unit to another. If I want to make a broadcast to multiple units, that's quite easy as well. Just go to the function libraries here on the IT5 still and create a device group. The device group allows us to group multiple devices together and address them as one. So I simply switch over to device group, click on Add, assign a name, call it all call. Select the speakers or devices I want in that group, add them to the list, click on Save, and I have a device group set up already. The next thing will be I go to the machine window again and assign another button for the device group. Yep. Let's say button number 4 will be device group all call. Click on Save, and I have the button on my IT5. I can select the all call key, make my announcement, and page to both the IP speaker and the 𝐂𝐸 device. That's how easy it is to set up a call to multiple targets. Now let's have a quick look at the 𝐂𝐸. The 𝐂𝐸 I'm going to use right now to show how easy it is to upload a message to a unit and trigger that message. First, we go to the media setting and scroll down a bit, select Upload, choose a file. In this case, we're going to use an emergency tone. Click on Start, and now that file has been uploaded to the 𝐂𝐸 and it's stored on the unit. Here we can see the list of files currently on the unit. create a new playlist now. Simply name it emergency. I want to store it on the machine. You could also store it on a USB thumb drive if I had any connector at the moment. Then I can edit that playlist, go to my file list and say the emergency tone. I want to edit in the first slot. I want it to play 2 times with no delay in between. Click on save. And I have a playlist saved on the unit that plays the emergency tone only. Then I switch to the I/O control. That is already preset. So the emergency button is the red button we have on the front of the unit. If it is activated, it will play, well, in this case, music, the emergency playlist. If it is off, it will stop playing the music. Don't get irritated by music. We could also use it to play a message to another unit. So let's say the red button is pressed and the emergency signal would be played back to the headmaster's IT5. Since that is all set up, quick demo, just open the here, press the button and put it on the other side. The way I configured it now, I can stop the siren by pressing the button again, but of course there are options. So you cannot stop the siren once it actually starts playing. And that's how easy it is to play a message from one unit to another. What we did, Actually, what we did here is we played the message locally on the Terra SAP. Playing the message from one unit to another is just as simple. We can do that from the IT5 again. The media setting page looks slightly different, but the functionality is the same. So again, we need to upload a file first. You can see there are no files on the unit at the moment. So I choose a file, choose my emergency tone again, click on upload, and the file is stored on the IT5 now. So now I have multiple ways to actually trigger that message. Option 1 would be to look at the paging station, select the device I want to stream the message to, go to the messages menu, select the message I just uploaded, and click on play. That will play the message from the IT5 to the IT speaker. The other way would be to do that via a contact input on other devices. So we could say that whenever a contact input comes in, the message is played back to another unit. Now taking a quick look at the IP speaker. The IP speaker, as Matthew mentioned earlier on, has some more advanced features like DSP, more DSP-like features. So we have a few options to actually improve the audio quality. You can see this little DSP matrix showing the signal flowchart. Each of these boxes can be opened and we can use that to set the parameters. So in this case, I just opened the parametric EQ. And what I can do now is I can just grab these points and move them around or enter the values down here to adjust the EQ setting that would affect the Ethernet audio stream. So any InP audio that's coming into the speaker. All that happens live. So what you can do is if you have Wi-Fi access to the system, you could even walk around the site with a tablet, stand next to each speaker, do the EQing, click on save, walk over to the next. So that makes setting up the speakers on site very, very easy, really. We also have functions. We have the parametric EQ on the Ethernet audio stream, on the VoIP input, which would be the calls between units. We have an automatic gain control we can set up. We have a high-low pass EQ. We can change the parameters of the ducker that stops the background music whenever the call is coming in. We can set amplifier out, volume, and we have a live VU meter here. So if I make a call to the classroom speaker right now, you can see that the VU meter is actually showing that there is a signal present. And finally, we have a compressor limit at the back. This is not all you can do with the system. The system does way more than just paging. The IT5, for example, offers you a great way of actually controlling what is happening in the system. If I switch over to the machine windows, I pre-configured some keys here. These keys that I pre-configured are shown on page 2. So what we're doing is we're sending command strings volume plus, volume minus to the IP speaker, and we're sending command strings close or open to the IP speaker. What that does in reality, we now have 6 buttons on the IT5, and we can change the volume up and down. And we have a display between these buttons showing us the volume that the speaker is currently at. So right now it will read level minus 25 dB. If we increase it a couple of times, we could switch that up to minus 10 dB. Below that, we have simple logic control. In the middle, we have a status display that shows us right now the logic output of the IP speaker is open. If you press the close button, the relay closes. I don't know if you can hear it clicking. If it's open, it opens again. So we can control relay output of an IP speaker. This could be used to open or lock a door or act as to control a door buzzer, for example. And in the middle, we have a status display showing us what the current status of that logic output actually is. All that setting up can be done in a matter of minutes, really, so it is really not that complicated. And as I said, all you need to do is a web browser. And that is pretty much the basic, very quick overview of how the system is programmed, how it is performing, and what you can do with it in a nutshell. There is tons of other options. Typically, if you have an application, if you need the system to do something, just get in touch with us or get in touch with Dynamic CCTV, and they will be able to tell you and show you ways of how to make things work with the telecom system. I think that would be the end of the quick show and tell. So we can now open the panel to questions.
No worries. Thank you very much for that, Marcus. That was great. Seeing the demo there. So I'll switch back to my screen. If you have any questions, if you put them through into the Q&A section on the webinar, for those that are going to end the webinar now, you should be redirected to a feedback page. I'd be very grateful if you could feed that back to us, positive or negative. It always helps us to improve the webinars that we offer our customers from those. But if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me an email on the contact details on screen, or if you start putting them in the Q&A section now, we can start going through those. If there's any questions that come through on there. Mark has asked if the audio is synchronized to all the speakers.
Yes, the audio will be synchronized. So even if we have larger jobs like one Matthew mentioned earlier, where we had 120, 130 IP horns in a warehouse, the audio will synchronize to all of them. So you will not have any delays between the speakers.
And then Nigel has asked, is there any integration with Hick Vision? And so there is a way to integrate the Hick Vision MVRs and cameras with Penton using an IP audio gateway. So you take your analog output from the NVR into the gateway, which can then distribute to the IP speakers on site. With that as well, you can also take your alarm outputs from your NVR or the cameras into the gateway, which can then trigger pre-recorded messages as well. So you get the live audio as well as the pre-recorded messages. And we are currently trying to work with the Hick Vision R&D teams for them to bring in the additional functionality for the Hike Central BMS platform as well, which I know the guys at Penton have been speaking to Hick Vision about as well. So there is that there with the system on those. And I think that's pretty much all the questions there. I know I've seen a couple of that have come through on email as well. But I just want to thank Matthew and Marcus for taking the time today to go through the Penton audio solutions for our customers. Thank you both for taking the time today.
Cool. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for attending.
No worries. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next webinar, which is in 2 weeks' time again. But thanks for joining us today, and take care and stay safe. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.